It almost seems kind of counterintuitive for them to kill Pablo, though, right? Because Pablo was fueling this whole thing. Why would they kill him?
Well, they didn't kill him. He killed himself. But they set things in motion that killed him with his enemies. It was his own men that hunted him down in the end. The Castaño brothers were in charge of the operation. They were the head. They were the head of the death squad, Los Pepes, and Don Berner was their lieutenant who was on the ground who went into the house with his brother Seed. There were some cops there, but they always sent Los Pepes in the death squad first, and then they would have to disappear because they were an illegal death squad, and the police would take the credit. The police were shitting themselves about Pablo, but they were using technology to track him down with the authorities and working with the authorities.
Right.
So they go in. The Castaño brothers have announced that they're going to capture Pablo alive. They're going to have his arms and legs surgically removed, and they're going to keep him alive, and they're going to throw the stumps on Medellin. The king of Medellin is now, this stump, and that would guarantee their legend. They were going to chop his kids up and send them to him in a sack. Now, Pablo died because of the love of his family. He stayed on the phone for too long. He caused the end to happen. And he always said to his men, he's got his famous 6-hour pistol. He's going to shoot off so many bullets, and then he's going to put one in his head. Look at how the line that bullet went through, almost one ear, almost perfect line through one ear into the other ear. Slightly out of place, but he'd been shot 3 times. I think it was 3 times. He'd been shot in the knee. He'd been shot in the shoulder, and one of the bullets had ended up lodged between his teeth. It was over for him, and he knew that he had to get out of the way to save his family. He sacrificed himself for the love of his family, and that's what's interesting about him is these contradictions. This guy who authorized genital electrocution and torture. One of the tortures they had was they would put rags with petrol into your mouth, with gas that runs cars into your mouth until your eyeballs popped out. They wouldn't just kill you; they would kill whole generations of your family. Yeah, his love for his family was so strong. He died for his family. Now he was made the boogeyman because he went to war with the government instead of just kicking back. There was people, according to George Valdez, there was people bigger than him who kicked back and stayed out of the headlines. And in the 1980s, when Pablo was making all this news, war with the government, Felix Gallardo was rising up as the Mexican cartel boss without making any news headlines whatsoever. That was a far shrewder strategy. Yeah. When they took the Colombians down, the Mexicans took over because it doesn't matter which country you take down, another country's going to pick you up because the profit margin is so high because of drug laws. But the feds need a boogeyman. So, we just had El Chapo.
Yeah.
Who's it going to be next?
Have you read the book of Pablo's brother?
I've read all the books on Pablo. Plus, I've got all of the books that have been written about Pablo in Spanish translated into English because I've just written the longest book ever about Pablo, 4-book series, over 1,000 pages called Pablo Escobar's Story, which completely transformed, getting all these translations completely transformed my understanding of what happened.
And you're releasing this when?
It's already released. I just released part 3 this week.
This week?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a series. Okay, so you just released part 3.
Yeah, I just released part 3. So part 4 is the only one remaining now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first introduction to that whole world was when I read the accountant's story. From his brother. What did you see? When you read that? I mean, I felt like the perspective of that book was kind of unique to everything else because he was the only one living, right? That was that close to him.
Yeah, and that's what took me on the scent to get closer to the truth because all the people living close to him or working for him, his wife, his mistress, Virginia Vallejo, his main hitman, Popeye, all those people had written books that were only in Spanish back then. And the guys that were there when he died in charge of the operation, Carlos Castaño wrote My Confession, Don Berner wrote Killing the Boss, all in Spanish, still not in English. All the truth is in the Spanish-speaking world. Now, I learned this because I wrote a book called Pablo Escobar Beyond Narcos. I did a talk in London, and a Colombian woman came up to me at the end and said, there's far more that you don't know in the Spanish-speaking world. Everything written in the English-speaking world was incentivized and through the lens of certain agendas, such as the DEA. The American heroes go in and kick the bad guys' ass. That's what Narcos has portrayed. It's the DEA perspective.
Right.
There was an opportunity for Juan Pablo to give his input to Narcos, and the DEA threatened to pull out. So there's an agenda here. It's the war on drugs. The DEA are the good guys. The US federal government is the, holier than thou, protecting kids from evil drug dealers, while the CIA is bringing the drugs in.
Wow, man. Jeez.
That agenda must be protected at all costs to keep the war on drugs going, but it's falling down. All this violence we're seeing now, the social unrest, I think the war on drugs is tearing the fabric of society apart because the profit margin, the amount of drugs sold every year illegally gets bigger. They estimate $500 billion to $1 trillion. And it's the biggest opportunity in the history of the world for criminal organizations, including intelligence agencies, to make the most profits ever out of anything. So they're all competing. And that's what's causing all this violence in Mexico and all the knife crime in London. What the media isn't telling you, the majority of it is drug gangs competing and criminals competing for the black market profits created by drug laws.